Improving patient experience is important. Improving staff and clinician experience is also important. If we lump these stakeholders together under a single umbrella, do we risk cannibalizing one side when we want to fund the other? Well, that's a question I'm about to ask my next guests. Hello and welcome to Swaay.Health. I'm Colin Hung, and I'm about to sit down with Adam Cherrington, Vice President of Digital Health and Patient Voice at KLAS Research. As well, Spencer Snyder, Senior Healthcare Consultant, also from KLAS Research. KLAS recently released a new report that brings together patients, families, caregivers, staff, and clinician experience. They're calling it Healthcare Experience Management, and I want to ask them all about it. Let's get to it. Adam, Spencer, welcome to the program.
Glad to be with you, Colin.
It's always great to have the folks from KLAS online with us. Before we get started, maybe if each of you could just quickly introduce yourselves and your role at KLAS for the benefit of our audience.
Yeah, happy to. Good to see you as always. Adam Cherrington, I oversee digital health and the Patient Voice Collaborative at KLAS. And always enjoy talking to Colin.
Yeah, and Spencer Snyder. I'm an Insights Director here at KLAS as well, and work really closely with Adam around patient engagement, digital health, and also the Patient Voice Collaborative, and excited to share some of our findings of this recent report.
Well, before we get started, Adam, I do have to thank you again for coming to our Swaay.Health Live event in Atlanta and being the host of that wonderful panel that you did. It was amazing, and it's very much related to actually what we're talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the invitation. I thought you put on just a wonderful event. Really at the heart of healthcare. How do we learn from each other? How do we grow? How do we improve healthcare together? There's great synergy from your group and actually the mission of KLAS. That's ultimately why we exist. How do we improve healthcare together? So it was a great event. I was happy to be there.
Love it. And flattery will get you everywhere with me. So thank you, Adam, for saying that. But let's dive in, gentlemen. So in your latest segment Insights, KLAS talks about the industry moving beyond patient experience to include now things like family members, caregivers, staff, clinicians, and it's something that you guys called healthcare experience management. Can you explain that concept and give us a little bit of insight into that report?
Yeah, absolutely. So historically, this category has been called patient experience improvement, and we still think that's an essential part of healthcare and measuring the patient's experience. Obviously there's regulations that require that and reimbursements based on some of that. But as we've listened to the market, including provider leadership and vendor leadership, there was an effort and is an effort to expand that. And I think it makes sense that healing really takes place outside the hospital with the health system and with your other stakeholders that are involved. I think of care journeys that I've been on or my family. Yes, it's with the doctor. Yes, it's with the staff. It's my family. It's my neighborhood. It's my spouse that helps me, etc. And so it's really part of the same journey. And we just realized, hey, we've got to expand our view of this. We will continue to emphasize the patient, but hopefully it's more true to what healthcare is really like. Spencer, anything you want to add?
No, I think you really hit on it. I think just as we look at the vendors that play in the space, as we look at the feedback that we get from providers, from healthcare organizations that we work closely with, as Adam said, there really is this kind of holistic approach to healthcare and feeling like the focus on patient is only part of that. And as we look beyond it and involve those other stakeholders, we feel like it really is kind of meeting the mark. And it also ties to this kind of increase and rise in healthcare consumerism as well, and recognizing that the patients are only part of that consumerism journey. You really are involving those other stakeholders at every step of the way. And we feel like that the renaming of this space, the work and kind of the focus of this moving forward. Obviously, this is an early process for us. We've just now renamed to healthcare experience management market segment. We've are going to continue to validate these different experiences of the stakeholders across that continuum and kind of see where it goes into the future.
You know, what's interesting for me is, you know, KLAS is both reacts to what's happening in the market, but also helps set the tone for what's happening in the market as well. So what I'm interested in asking you is, are you seeing that healthcare organizations are lumping all of these stakeholders in the experience together, or are you kind of projecting that this is something that healthcare organizations should be doing, like putting together patient experience, clinician experience, family caregiver experience? Can you maybe navigate that a little bit for me?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a little bit of both. We are seeing organizations that are already doing this, and we do expect more of that to happen. You know, you think of the role of a chief experience officer, and there are times when it's chief patient experience officer, it gets more specific, but I think experience has to include multiple stakeholders. And it's an opportunity for healthcare to, I like the word Spencer used, of think holistically. Uh, it really has to include many, like we've shared. So it's an interesting time for sure. There's really good opportunities to get good at helping all stakeholders.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, Adam, I think, you know, what we also wanted to do with this report is actually validate how much of this is actually going on, because we hear about this approach of including more than just the patients. And so we wanted to find out, okay, as we talk to the customers of these different vendors, how many of them are actually engaging these other stakeholders and try to understand what that looks like. And we did see, as you'll see in the results of the report, that many are having a large focus outside of just the patient, and that's being done. And so it's kind of almost kind of bringing to light what's already taking place, as well as trying to guide the market in a direction that we feel like is a really good approach of healthcare, with including kind of everybody that is a stakeholder in that process.
Well, let me ask the question that is the heart of the interview. It's the one that was sort of in my head as I was reading through this wonderful report. And that is, you know, is there a risk that by including all of these other elements, which, by the way, is very important, right? No doubt that we should definitely be improving the family experience, definitely including improving staff and clinician experience. These are all important things. But patient experience has been lagging for so long and has been neglected for so long. Do we risk diluting the investments in time and money in improving the patient experience by adding all these other elements to it as well? In other words, are we risking cannibalizing the dollars and time that goes to patient initiatives?
Boy, I really like this question, Colin. It almost implies that the patients are seen as the key stakeholder, which is great, and may it be so. And you're talking to two of the guys at KLAS that we are saying always listen to the patient, always include them more. In fact, just a side note, we're leading an initiative called the Patient Voice Collaborative. I talked about at your conference. This is our first effort to formally go interview patients and include their perspectives on technology. And so you're talking to two guys that are very, very focused on what does the patient need and want and talk about. So I really like the question. It's I don't think we're there yet where there's concerns of people saying, hey, the pendulum's going way too far. We can't go that far. Yes, resources are limited. They will always be limited, and you have to pick and choose where to invest and focus. But I believe it's understood you have to serve both the clinicians and staff and the patients. You have to serve both. I will say that including the family or caregiver or neighbors, including them, that feels like it's behind a little bit. There are some tools out there. We don't run into them very often, but there are solutions that bring along the family. But going back to clinician and staff and patient, they are deeply connected. You can't be one without the other, and so you have to serve both. And the other side of KLAS that serves some of the concerns and experience of the clinician is the Arch Collaborative. This is a EHR optimization collaborative we have. We have many resources on burnout and just how do you serve that community and stakeholder. Your question made me think of a book that's out there, New York Times bestseller called Patients Come Second. A friend of mine, Britt Barrett, helped write that. And I love to tease him about it because we're the guys saying patients come first, and he wrote a best-selling book. Patients come second. His premise is to take care of the patient, you have to take care of the employee as well, and the caregiver and the clinician. Makes a lot of sense. Okay. But I still love to tease him every time I talk to him about it and say, how dare you say patients are second? But that's part of the onus of the book, that it grabs your attention that way. So I think it's not either or, it's both. And even with limited resources, if you can't afford to do everything you want, you have to do something. And that could be employee rounding. It could be clinician rounding. It could be, a chief experience officer rolling up their sleeves and just walking the floor and listening and making sure that the staff is included. So I don't think we're to the point where there's those concerns that, hey, we're going to dilute the patient's needs. I still think we need to do more for the patient. But the question makes us think about, are we serving both stakeholders in an effective way?
Yeah, and I think kind of in addition to that, I think about how there's lots of quotes around you can only improve those things that you measure. And I think about, in my own, personal healthcare journey, my wife, she's type 1 diabetic. She was diagnosed when she was 13. So we're very high utilizers of healthcare when you talk about dealing with that chronic disease on a daily basis. And I think about the number of surveys and things that she gets asked about on this journey that she's on, with the number of providers and organizations that she interacts with. And I think from my view, if how much I would appreciate if that organization was also doing that with their clinicians, with their staff, of trying to understand what they're doing well and where there's opportunities for improvement, so that they can then improve our experience and my wife's experience and my experience as a patient. And so it really aligns with everything Adam just said, where we feel like they are very connected. And I feel like by measuring those key stakeholders, it's going to kind of raise all levels and hopefully improve the experience for every single person that engages across the board within the healthcare journey.
Just this morning, I talked with a vendor that has offered services in reputation management. Okay, and they have been pulled into the world of healthcare experience management. Their clients said, can you also help us just validate our experience of patients and staff? So that the tech is actually connected. Online reviews and experience makes sense, similar objectives. But this vendor told me that providers are looking at that data to make decisions about considering employment even. And so I think these worlds are just deeply connected. And like I said, that's an experience from this morning. This is being talked about.
I mean, I like what you said there, Adam and Spencer. I don't think it's either or, right? Like, I think hopefully it is 1 + 1 = 3, right? Like, take what you're doing on the employee staff side, take what you're doing on the patient side, add it together, and then you should get some economies, right? Like, maybe the same solution can serve both constituents. Maybe you can do things internally to leverage each other's initiatives and therefore get more bang for the investment that you're making. That certainly is the hope. But as you know, man, there's always this danger of where if you make the tent too big, then you risk, well, there's only X dollars that I'm going to associate with all of this. And then it becomes well, how much do I put X or Y do I put over here and not here? And so you end up back where you're fighting patient versus staff experience, right? And although, even though nobly we want to do both, you end up sometimes having to prioritize one versus the other. So I'm hoping what you say is true, that it is blending, because you can't treat your staff very poorly and expect them to deliver a great patient experience. That just does not happen, right? Like, and we all know this from hospitality and from airline transportation. Like, everyone knows this and acknowledges this. Healthcare, not, I think they've always known this, but now it's good to see that we are kind of treating them in the same bucket. So anyway, I hope I guess what I'm saying is I'm hoping that we end up pooling rather than distributing further.
I think you're right. Again, love how you're getting ahead of the curve as you think about this. And I think evidence of this understanding that you have to serve both comes through in the departments and roles that we've seen emerge over the past several years. Was there many chief experience officers 10 years ago? Maybe a few, but I don't think very many. It's not hard to find that now. And all three of us are deeply involved in that in healthcare now. The experience and many organizations out there, many services. So I think we're going to see this area continue to grow. We've seen vendors enter healthcare that have been deep in consumerism and customer experience. That's a world that's growing, and rightly so. Healthcare is behind. There's no doubt about it. It's amazing to me how something as simple as a fast food vendor knows their clientele better than a doctor does. And insert your favorite consumerism example here, but I like the change. I think it's needed.
Let's, on that note, Adam, let's dive into some of the vendors actually that were mentioned in this report, because that's another equally fascinating part about the report. And in there you mentioned well-known organizations in healthcare, Press Ganey, NRC, and then there's some new ones. To your point, Adam, some new entrants maybe coming from other spaces. We have PRC, Qualtrics, FeedTrail. It's funny because when I looked at this list, I know a lot of organizations that have one or more of these organizations working as partners. And today, I think they feel very different needs, right? The reason why I bring on Qualtrics isn't necessarily the same reason why I'm engaging with Press Ganey. Are you seeing maybe that we're heading towards a day of vendor convergence here, where all of these folks are going to be providing similar types of experiences? Or was more the point of the report to say, hey, all these tools are under the same umbrella and you can use any one of them to kind of satisfy the different aspects of healthcare experience management?
There's certainly differences of the vendors, and it's interesting you ask that. Because one of our key questions was, are you using additional vendors to validate your experience with patients and others? And overwhelmingly, the answer is yes. Multiple vendors are being used. So I'll let Spencer speak to some of the other findings, but yes, most people are using multiple solutions. And if it follows the pattern we're seeing across digital health, yes, there is convergence happening. I think COVID introduced the idea, go get any tech you need right now, hands on deck, just get it and we'll sort it out later. Well, we're sorting it out later. It's now. So, Spencer, what would you share with other learnings from the report?
Yeah, I think that, one of the things that we try and do in our reports is try and help providers or people who are accessing this report to understand, what do these vendors look like? Where's their differentiations? We try and include information like what type of organizations did we interview that they serve? So you talk about like a FeedTrail who rated really highly. They were the best in class winner for 2024. They serve, mainly a smaller facility or a clinic. And so if that's the world that you're in, okay, that might be somebody you need to go look to, as opposed to you talk about a Qualtrics or Press Ganey when you talk about their market presence, not only within healthcare, but obviously some of the cross industry areas. That's where we wanted to help give an understanding on, okay, what type of facility are you coming from? Do you want somebody that's a big player? Do you want someone that's smaller, maybe where you get a little bit more of that service that maybe you maybe lose out on when you talk about scale and size of some of these other organizations? And then also, as Adam mentioned, one of the questions we asked was around, who else are you using and are you using other vendors? Because this concept of consolidation is being so heavily talked about. We've already talked about how budgets and dollars are becoming tighter and harder to come by. And so the ability for these vendors to hopefully expand their services to try and provide everything under one product, I think that is the vendors that have the ability to do that will be very successful, because right now, it's about a 50-50 split on somebody saying yes or no, I'm using these other vendors. And when you talk about what that means from a budget perspective, there's going to be the question of, hey, can one of these guys do pretty much everything we want, or can they expand their services to give us everything, and then we can focus on them, build that partnership. And that partnership piece is also very important. A lot of our research and our conversations are showing that consolidation is important, and people are not necessarily moving to the number one functionality in the market. That concept of partnership and that relationship that they've had with a vendor is being equally weighted, as is the product of the quality or the quality of the product that's being offered. So there's a lot of things that they're weighing when it comes to that concept of consolidation that we're seeing in this space. And like I said, many different vendors, but I think there is starting to be more of this convergence on them offering similar things across the different stakeholders. And I think those who can do that faster or at scale will probably see themselves be more successful over time.
So Spencer, where can people go to download this Segment Insights report?
Yeah, so providers and members of healthcare organizations can go directly to the KLASresearch.com website. Just search healthcare experience management, and that'll get pulled up on the search bar, and you can download it right there. If you're a vendor who's looking to kind of gain more information on this space, you can reach out to Spencer or to Adam or myself directly, and we can get you taken care of.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program and sharing these great insights. Look forward to the next time we can get you online to talk about your next report.
Always a pleasure, Colin. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Colin.
Hey, I want to thank Adam and Spencer for coming on camera with me and talking about their latest report on healthcare experience management. It is clear that both of them feel we are heading towards a conversion event where vendors in this space begin to expand their capabilities so customers can have a single one-stop shop. It's also clear that all three of us are hoping that bringing experienced stakeholders together means a bigger voice and more attention overall. And hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I enjoyed being part of it, please like and subscribe. Also, head on over to Swaay.Health, that's Swaay with 2 A's, .health, where you can find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode.